I think we all know that Larian Studios, game developers of critically acclaimed games such as Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2, have scored a critical success with this one. There's just no hiding the success that Baldur's Gate 3 has accrued throughout its time being released, to the point that it even won Game of the Year at the Game Awards last year. After saying all that, you might think it's stupid to ask if it's a game worth playing in 2024. To be honest, you probably already know the answer to this, but the game was just so good that I had to make a video about it. Plus, this way I get to showcase both the good and bad experiences I had with the game. Yes, I think the game is a masterpiece, but it's not perfect, and it's definitely not to everyone's taste. In today's video, we'll be looking at the great, the good, and the bad that the game has to offer. You can agree or disagree in the comments. I'll go check them out and try and reply to them as best as I can. But now it's time to get on with the video and answer the question, is Baldur's Gate 3 worth playing in 2024? When I saw the intro cinematic of this game, my jaw dropped. The quality is unreal. It literally felt like I was watching a movie, but let's not get too carried away. The game starts out swinging. No chill intro into the Forgotten Realms, no peaceful countryside, no proud city full of happy and busy people. You're a prisoner of the Mind Flayer race, also known as the Illithids. Flying aboard one of their fearsome warships, a Nautiloid, you catch a glimpse of one of your future companions, a Githyanki, also a prisoner. Now you might be asking how you got there in the first place. To be honest, I'm not sure either. I haven't played any of the past games, so I don't know if this follows up from the ending of Baldur's Gate 2 or if it's a completely unrelated start. What you're about to find out, however, is why you're there. A Mind Flayer with its eerie tentacle appendages enters the chamber where you're held. It floats to the center and with a gesture opens a pod-like structure. What's inside? Mind Flayer parasites. What do? Well, I'll let you watch and find out. Soon after, the Nautiloid reaches a city full of people and starts abducting them. One by one, people vanish and reappear inside the ship, ready to be infected by the same parasite that just made itself home in your head. This is starting to look like a citywide threat. What could possibly stop this absolute unit of a flying octopus? A portal opens and 3 dragons fly out of it, their riders looking oddly similar to the Githyanki you saw earlier. A fearsome chase ensues, a chase that spans a few Star Wars-like warp jumps through the plains. As the ship enters Avernus, it's boarded by devils. The Mind Flayers are occupied. If you ever thought of the perfect time to escape, now is the time. You explore the ship, meeting a few of your fellow parasite-infected acquaintances along the way. At the end of it all, the Nautiloid gets to warp one last time, but having sustained serious damage, it starts to crash with you in it. You mysteriously survive the event and wake up washed up along the shore in what I thought was the starting area of Divinity Original Sin 2. You can't blame me for saying they're really similar to each other. This is where the cinematic ends and the game begins. What an intro, yeah? While story-wise you're left with more questions than answers, you have an immediate driving force as to what you must do. Figure out how to get that parasite out of your head and fast. This adventure leads you to meet new people, enter a goblin camp, traverse a cursed land, travel through the mountains, and even an underground temple dedicated to a goddess. The intro gives you just enough of a hint for you to know what to do, but doesn't tell you exactly how, which opens up the game in so many ways, and I loved it. As a matter of fact, the whole game kind of revolves around that one thing. It's just that along the way you discover things, some of them larger than life, that lead you to make decisions that you'd normally think would be way more than you bargained for. It's in these decisions that you build the world and the outcomes of the story. In my view, there are no side quests in this game, because every quest you go through always has some way of circling back around to help you with your main objective. This makes the world feel connected and your actions and decisions materialized in the story. Your choices and actions matter so much that it even affects your companions. During your travels, you find a few companions that share a similar predicament as you. It's worth noting that you can completely skip past these companions, though you'd probably have to do that intentionally. But for the most part, you all band together as a party of adventurers seeking a cure to your problem. You learn more about them as you adventure together, and you find out that each has a unique backstory and prominent personal goal, which, if acted upon, creates interesting situations for you and the party. Your actions and decisions you make along the way affect how they see you. Connecting with them positively gives you a loyal companion and allows you to learn more about them. Having a negative relationship, however, may prove to be troublesome at some point in your travels. The way your companions are voice acted and how they react and jump in during some conversations are so immersive. There's no uninteresting character, and each has a unique personality and goal which would lead you to different outcomes in the story and different areas to explore. Choose your companions wisely and nurture your relationships with them. Don't take too long though. Stray too far and you could miss a few encounters and quest paths. You're on a time limit, trying to get that parasite out of your head, and with each day that passes, its hold on you grows stronger. Now that's a lot of good things about the story, but what about some bad ones? Now for starters, there are a lot of cutscenes and dialogue in this game, and I mean a lot. Those of you who get easily bored by people talking, want to get into the thick of things immediately, and just want to speed through things, might get turned off by Baldur's Gate 3's innately slow pace. Add in the fact that speeding through things will guarantee that you miss more than a few important things, and you've got a recipe for a slow and meticulous ride. Another reason would be that this game requires a lot of time for any meaningful progression per gaming session. Of course, you could play for just a few hours per gaming session, but you'd take forever to finish the game. Act 1 alone has at least 50 plus hours worth of content in it. If you find yourself in a tight schedule, you might not be able to enjoy what little gaming time you have walking around and listening to your party members talk. Lastly, if you're like me and you like doing everything in one playthrough, it's literally impossible to do that in this game. There are a lot of moments in the game where one choice will lock you out of other outcomes. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be a dialogue choice. If you accidentally trigger a fight, that could mean that you could miss out on a whole area and a group of allies. This game is brutal with how it shows you that choices matter, so if you want to experience everything about this game, you better buckle up for multiple playthroughs and multiple 100 hours of gameplay. That's about all the bad points I can think about with the story. Maybe I could have come up with more if I knew how it connected with the past two games, since there are plenty of characters that apparently return from previous games. For the most part, the story is well crafted and kept me on my toes with every new conversation. If there's something in there that would turn people off though, I'd say it's the pacing. Moving on, let's get on with the next part of the video, the gameplay. To cover the gameplay, we got to start at the beginning. The character creation. You actually get to make your character during the intro cinematic. Not only this, but you also get prompted to create your guardian. You'll learn more about this guardian while you progress the story, but the guardian doesn't really have much gameplay implications. I'm not really known to deep dive with any game's character creation, but I felt like there were a satisfying number of options to create the face I wanted. As long as I can slap on a closed beard on a somewhat good-looking dwarf, that's all that matters. Now that the introduction is over and the world is open to you, it's time to explore. You move around by clicking left click on the mouse and move the camera by using the WASD keys or moving your mouse to the edges of the screen, which you enable in the options. Rotating the camera is done by using the Q and E keys, and you can right click any highlightable object to get a few more options on what to do with them. If story is a strong point in this game, then exploration is yet another strong point. If you're the type that wants to explore every nook and cranny of the map before moving on, then this game suits you well because it rewards you for it. You can check the whole map by pressing M, where you can see the points of interest, fast travel points, and areas you've yet to explore, covered by the fog of war. You travel with a party of up to 4 people, one of which must always be your character. You are the MC after all. But like most RPG games like this, you need not stick together while exploring. You can literally have your party members be at the 4 corners of the map simultaneously, or even have some inside of a building while the others stay outside. It's fair to say that creativity and imagination can really work to your advantage with the exploration. Lock door, pick the lock, smash through, or maybe turn into a cloud of gas to pass through a hole in the wall on the side. Need to get to a higher level but there's no stairs? Better start stacking some boxes. While some ways of exploration can be created by using your immense gamer brain, some require you to pass ability checks to discover. Ability checks are moments in the game that tell you if you succeed in doing an action or not. Trying to lie to someone? Deception check. Talk someone into doing something? Persuasion check. Pick someone's pocket or pick a lock? Sleight of hand check. Ability checks are done for almost any meaningful thing in the game, small or big. Some are even lethal in that if you fail them, it results in a party wipe, so make sure you're using the right party member for the job. To determine whether you'll succeed, a d20 dice is rolled and the result is compared to the difficulty of the action being performed, represented in a number. Your stat that is related to the action being performed provides a bonus depending on how high it is. There are also other ways of increasing the bonus, but those come in the form of spells, elixirs, backgrounds, race, or even your situation. Now, what happens if you fail an important ability check? Well, you usually just have to deal with the consequences. But for those life and death situations, you're going to want to use some inspiration. Now, what's inspiration, you ask? Remember how everyone in your party, including yourself, has a background? Well, if you do certain actions or choose certain dialogue options that best suit the character, they gain bonus experience and a point of inspiration. Inspiration can be stored up to 4 times and is used to redo a failed dice roll. If you've never seriously roleplayed your character in an RPG before, you might want to do so in Baldur's Gate 3. Not only is it a source of experience, it can also be a get out of jail free card too. We've established how important these ability checks can be sometimes, so you'll probably want to maximize your bonuses. The most accessible way is increasing your stats, so how do you do that? Baldur's Gate 3 isn't like most RPGs in the sense that every time you level up, you see an increase in your stats. When you reach certain levels, you get the option to choose a feat or do an ability score improvement. The former lets you learn a new passive skill, while the latter gives you 2 points to distribute to any stat you wish. Don't just mindlessly go for the ability score improvement though. Some of those feats are really helpful. Some I've even deemed required in every run. Experience is gained in a few ways: progressing and completing quests, finishing encounters, and discovering locations and secrets. While combat might look like your main way of getting experience, if you can talk yourself out of it or find a way to solve a conflict before it happens, then the game awards you with the total experience you would have gotten if the fight broke out in the first place. This also means though that you'll no longer gain experience for fighting those NPCs. I find that neat as it prevents players from just farming XP by reloading to succeed dice rolls, then killing the NPC anyway for more XP. It also helps push the player into sticking with their decision. If you decide to deceive someone to finish an encounter, it becomes counterintuitive to fight them if you change your mind because you won't be getting the experience. Now let's go ahead and talk about combat. For those of you who've played tabletop Dungeons & Dragons, you'll find yourself right at home. At the beginning of combat, all characters roll for initiative. The higher the roll, the earlier you get your turn. During your turn, you get an action, bonus action, reaction, your movement, and free actions. Actions are more of the main combat movements like casting spells, swinging your weapon, switching weapons from your backpack, and so on. Bonus actions are those which you'd think would take less time or effort to do, like coating your weapon with poison, jumping, or casting minor spells. Reactions are things you can do in reaction to an opponent's action. Your movement is how far you can travel in a turn, and your free actions are things that you can do as many times as you want in a turn, like opening and closing a door. No matter what you do in combat towards an enemy, dice will have to be rolled to determine if the action succeeds. Attacking with your weapon prompts an attack roll which is defined by your stat modifier, any buffs you have, and the enhancement level of your weapon. Spells have either an attack roll or a saving throw roll, which makes enemies roll a dice which determines if they're able to defend against the spell or not. Of course, the game rolls the dice for you, and you can see the success rate of your action as a percentage beside your mouse. That seems like a lot, but it all flows seamlessly in practice and doesn't feel slow. The only times where it feels slow is when your party comes across a huge group of enemies and you have to wait for all the enemies to finish their turn before you can move again. You might think combat to be repetitive, especially given that this is a turn-based game, but you'd be wrong, because everything that I said you can do in a turn can be augmented by race, class, the spells you use, and the items you have equipped. Some items allow you to have 2 actions per turn, some spells allow you to use actions as bonus actions, and vice versa. The level of the detail in the storytelling, character development, and world building is equally matched by the combat and the number of ways you can approach it. Just like getting creative with how you traverse the map, getting creative with combat can also do you wonders. Don't have enough AoE on your team, but there's something flammable nearby? Set it aflame for a makeshift fireball. Need to separate a large group of enemies? Put a wall of ice in between them. Have the strength to swing a giant axe but don't have one? It's alright. Swing your enemy instead. There's literally an achievement for that. You'll be surprised and excited to figure out what works and what doesn't in this game, and it makes the game that more fun. After a long day of combat, you'll want to rest up. You have a few ways to recover health: potions, healing spells, short rests, and long rests. The first two are self-explanatory. Short rests can be done twice per long rest and heal your party for half of their max HP and replenish any resources expended that need a short rest to regain. Once you run out of all of these though, you'll want to take a long rest, which is basically a party reset where all resources and health points are restored. To do this, you'll need at least 40 points worth of camp supplies. Be careful though, since long rests are also what prompt some parts of the main story and companion quests to move forward. So you'll want to find the right balance of using these in your playthrough. Now that we had our filler combat and are fully rested, let's hop into another main pillar of the gameplay: the progression. You can progress your character through leveling up, getting better equipment, and through certain points in certain quest lines. Leveling up is the most straightforward of the three. Aside from what I've already mentioned, with each level gained, you also have the option to multi-class. With 12 classes and 46 subclasses, you can imagine the sheer number of possibilities on how to build your character. I've only ever played a pure barbarian and a pure wizard, but in my next run I'll be doing a mix of barbarian and fighter. Do note that while in traditional D&D the max level is 20, the max level in Baldur's Gate 3 is 12. We may be missing 8 levels and the strongest abilities of each class, but rest assured that 12 levels is plenty enough to make you believe you're the main protagonist of this game. Partner up the class combos and abilities with rare and legendary equipment and you're set to be a terror on the Sword Coast. You get items and equipment mostly through looting NPCs and the general area, but the ones that you want to really look out for are in shops and quest rewards. A lot of quests offer up rare or even legendary rarity equipment when completed, and most vendors will always have a magic item that'll pique your interest in stock. Buying these will cost you though, so make sure you save up and think before bartering. The last topic about progression that I want to talk about is when you're given certain choices during quest lines. In the main story, there will be multiple opportunities for you to progress a unique skill tree, which will give you skills that would, in my experience, trivialize even the hardest of boss fights. Of course, the choice to accept them is yours, but the main quest isn't the only quest line that provides a unique form of progression. Each companion quest will always have something special for the party along the way. It could be a legendary item, a new look, additional powers, or even a whole alternate ending. Point is, you can only get these if you progress these quests properly. It's very possible to mess things up midway and get locked out of future rewards and encounters. One last thing before I move on, and this one contains spoilers, so feel free to skip through to the replay value section, which happens right after this. The level of detail on some fights is superb. The first hag fight in particular. There's a part where Auntie Ethel disguises herself as Mayrina and you have to choose which one to hit. Normally you'd hit them with non-lethal attacks to prevent Mayrina from dying, but you can also examine the copies, and if you've been paying attention that Mayrina is with child, one of them is pregnant and the other one isn't. My mind was completely blown by this because I just discovered it by accident. Huge props to the devs for that. Now that the honorable mention is done, let's move on to the last section before the verdict: replay value. I was able to finish my first run in the short span of 135 hours, and I wasn't even able to go through the entirety of the mountain pass section. My second run, I finished at just around 100 hours. Believe me when I say you'll be stuck with this game for a while if you're the kind that only plays one game at a time. There are multiple endings in the game depending on the crucial choices you made along the way, and the details of each ending are even more intricate as your relationships with your companions and if you completed their quests or not affect them. While the ending of the games heavily lean on just two outcomes, playing as a custom character or a pre-made one will change interactions with a lot of NPCs. Moreover, your class and proficiencies will also contribute to the diversity of each run. You could devote yourself to seriously role-playing your character, and even that would change a lot. This game is crafted masterfully to easily squeeze out several hundred hours of your time if you love RPGs, and more specifically, Dungeons and Dragons. It's not without its flaws though, as I mentioned earlier, and with the new patch 6 update, I was even able to find a bug that would consistently crash my game. Overall, I was able to push the inconveniences aside as the story, gameplay, dialogue, and world were all able to immerse me into the experience that is Baldur's Gate 3. So, is it worth playing play in 2024? Absolutely. I dare say it might even be the best game to get you into RPGs like this, or even as an introduction to the Dungeons and Dragons universe. You might not get the best out of it if you don't have much time to play, but if you're willing to spend a few hours in the Sword Coast every weekend or so, you'll be met with an adventure that'll bring you through a roller coaster of emotions. Since it's a fairly new title, you probably won't see it go on sale too often, but keep a lookout for those major Steam sales, as I'm pretty sure it'll be in one of those this year. Thanks for watching the video up to this point. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like and consider subscribing. I review games of all kinds, so you might enjoy my other videos too. Just don't dig too deep into the channel. I have a few videos I'm not so proud of. Let me know in the comments what you think of the game. What were your experiences? Who did you travel with? I'd love to know how fellow adventurers brought down the Absolute's cult. See you in the next video. Stay safe and have a great day ahead.